Oh my God, that's terrifying.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, that's terrifying. What could you conceive of that would help something like that? Like, what could you do that would aid the body in being able to do something like that? Is there anything theorized?
I don't know. I wish, Robert Malone would be a good person to ask, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe
He should
something
come back
like,
on and do a
yeah.
victory lap anyway. That
Yeah.
guy was torn apart.
Yeah.
They were trying so hard to make him out to seem to be a kook. And every interview he would do, he would be so reasonable, so logical, so fact-based, and so knowledgeable. And he was a kook. He was a kook.
That guy just got appointed to some
Oh my God.
bullshit advisory. What does this come from? No source? Is it in the original? Joe Rogan. This one? I didn't look at the full context. Maybe she's saying something reasonable.
And then I've talked to Brett Weinstein about that as well.
Oh my God.
And he gave a breakdown of how it actually happened and when the original kidney cells from these monkeys were being used to make vaccines.
Yeah, right.
That they inadvertently gave these people this simian virus 40,
Right.
which when it gets into the human body can lead to rapid cancer.
Right. Well, yeah, that's one of the cancer-causing issues with these shots. That's not the only one, though. I
Right.
mean, it goes into the cell. It's supposed to not get into the nucleus, but it could get in the nucleus. We know that it can get into the nucleus. And if it gets in the nucleus...
Well, at first they thought it was
game
going to
over.
stay local.
Right. It's only going to stay in the...
How does it? Is that true? Is there a mechanism for the mRNA to go into the nucleus of your cell? I haven't heard that. Maybe there is, but I don't know. Okay.
But it could get in the nucleus. We know that it can get into the nucleus. And if it gets in the nucleus...
Well, at first they thought it
game
was going
over.
to stay local.
Game over? What do you mean game over? What?
Right. It's only going to stay in the arm, right?
It's going to stay right where your arm is. Your body will react to
Right.
it. It'll produce the antibodies, and then you're good to go.
Yeah.
And then all these silly people, you can watch them die in the streets and laugh as you step over them. Ha ha ha! I was smart.
Right.
I trusted the science.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they know that that's not true. It doesn't stay local. They know it doesn't dissipate within. It was a small amount of time.
I don't think it. Why do you do IM injections? I think the reason why they inject into your muscle area is because there's a whole bunch of capillaries. There's a whole bunch of like saturation of it, and then your immune system can pick it up. It stays relatively local, but I don't think it has to stay there. I think it will eventually like float around into your bloodstream. I don't think it's supposed to only stay there forever. It's just supposed to be like a dense bed of capillaries, so you have like good, rather than like shooting it into your veins and have it. I don't know why you would want to do that, but
That are supposed to stay inside your body. Didn't know that's not true.
Right. So, yeah,
It was a small amount of time that it's supposed to stay inside your body. Didn't know that's not true.
Right. So, yeah, they replaced one of the nucleotides with something that's hard to break down, pseudouridine. They've never shown that pseudouridine is cleared from the body. There's no study showing that we can clear it. So it could...
I don't even know what that substance is, but okay.
That could be why these people have these sky-high antibody levels 4 years later, because the body might not be able to break it down.
Oh, my God.
Wait, what?
They've never shown that pseudouridine is cleared from the nucleotides with something that's hard to break down.
I would have to research. I don't even know what all this is. But the anti-vaxxers always have like new things, and when you look at them, it's retarded. But okay.
Pseudouridine. People have these sky-high antibody levels 4 years later, because the body might not be able to break it down.
Oh my God. Oh my God, that's terrifying. What could you conceive of that would help something like that? Like, what could you do that would aid the body in being able to do something like that? Is there anything theorized?
I don't know. I wish Robert Malone would be a good person to ask, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe
he should come
something
back
like,
on and do a victory lap anyway. That guy was torn apart.
Yeah.
They were trying so hard to make him out to seem to be a kook. And every interview he would do, he would be so reasonable, so logical, so fact-based, and so knowledgeable. And he was a kook. He was a kook. I remember some fucking guy yelled at me and yelled at me in Vegas. He said something about me spreading disinformation, and then he said something about that idiot Malone. I'm like, that guy.
Genetic material can enter the nucleus through pores, but your body heavily regulates that shit. So you would definitely need a study to show unique mRNA vaccines. Yeah, it's called nuclear transport. It's stuff that like everything, all of your cells and then your nucleus will have membranes that only allow specific proteins to pass through. But I don't think that none of the mRNA vaccines, I don't believe, had any of the necessary material that would allow them to move into the nucleus. Also, just even if it does move into the nucleus, that doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing would happen. You would have to show it interacting with your stuff in there in a negative way. It's just retarded. I don't know, but okay.
The inventor of mRNA.
Or one of them.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I'm sure it's not like none of those things ever happen in a vacuum. I'm sure
Right.
there's a ton of people
But
working on that. But he was one of them.
Right.
He's a brilliant guy. But so how did they find out that it can get into the nucleus?
Well, if you look at
Okay.
lipid nanoparticles, and that's sort of otherwise, if you just put mRNA into the body without the lipid nanoparticle, it would get destroyed. So they put it in the shell, the lipid nanoparticle, and there are studies showing lipid nanoparticles can cross the nuclear membrane. So there's that. Kevin McKernan is a scientist. He's on X a lot. He's done a lot of work in that.
I don't think lipid nanoparticles get into the cell, though, right? I thought the point of the lipid nanoparticle was to suspend and stabilize the mRNA so that the mRNA could be injected from the LNP into the cell. Does the lipid nanoparticle, does that have any way to get into the cell itself, or? Fuck, I would have to go back and reread all of this.
Showing DNA contamination that's getting into these shots, in addition to the SV40. And
DNA contamination.
Right. So there's, and this was what Joe Latipo, the Surgeon General of Florida, he has actually called for the COVID shots to be pulled off the market. And his main argument was there is a certain amount of DNA.
Your vaccine that, most general physicians could debunk that. But, when the Florida Surgeon General, Latipo, says mRNA vaccines are causing turbocancers because they're inserting nucleic acid into our genome, you have to think about that for a minute. And you say, wait a minute, there's no such thing as a turbocancer. It's a made-up term. And mRNA lipid nanoparticles delivered the nucleic acid package past the cell membrane into the cytoplasm, but they don't get into the nucleus. For that, you need electroporation. That's why we have no...
Yeah. The whole point of the liquid, because mRNA is a super fragile thing that vanishes as soon as you look at it, apparently. Apparently, mRNA is very unstable. But the lipid, if you just inject mRNA into your bloodstream, it'll kill itself. But I thought the point of the lipid nanoparticle was to allow the mRNA to float around until it found a cell, and then the lipid nanoparticle just keeps the mRNA alive long enough to ejaculate it into the cell, past the cell wall. But I'm not aware of the lipid nanoparticles entering the cells. Entering the cell would be going to the cytoplasm or whatever. Much less get into like the nucleus of the cell or anything. I don't even know if it would do anything if it did that. But
just because they're inserting nucleic acid into our genome, you have to think about that for a minute. And you say, wait a minute, there's no such thing as a turbocancer. It's a made-up term. And mRNA lipid nanoparticles delivered the nucleic acid package past the cell membrane into the cytoplasm, but they don't get into the nucleus. For that, you need electroporation. That's why we have no DNA vaccines. And even if they did, we have proteins of our innate immune system that prevent incorporation of foreign nucleic acid into our genome. Otherwise, every time we get a hamburger, you'd have cow DNA in our genome. But I have an MD and a PhD, and
okay, thank you. That's my understanding. Okay.
DNA that is allowed in any kind of these products, and his main argument was there is a certain amount of DNA that is allowed in any kind of these products, and we have proof that they have exceeded that threshold.
I don't. Okay.
So there have been studies showing that there's excess DNA in these samples, which shouldn't be there, and that's just sort of this hard line.
I don't know anything about that. Also, don't ever trust anybody that says studies and never actually gives you the study. But then also too, I don't even know if that would even matter necessarily that much. It would depend a lot on the things, right? Remember, there's pathogens and there's stuff that's like fighting to try to get into your body and to do shit all the fucking time. Like you've got a ton of foreign DNA in you right now. I just left a whole load of foreign DNA in your mom's ass. Doesn't mean you're gonna die from it, or that anything bad is gonna happen. This lady sounds retarded. Dr. Mary Tali Bowden. What does she do? An otolaryngologist. Hold on. Laryngologist, otolaryngologist. That's a MD, right? I imagine. I think that sounds like a medical doctor. Or ENT? Okay. Yeah, so she's a full-on physician. She's a senior fellow with the Independent Medical Alliance, formerly the FLCCC. Ah, these guys, I think this is like the front care or the frontline COVID care center or something. I remember these guys way back during COVID. Everybody associated with this. Oh, and they renamed and rebranded. This was all bullshit. These guys fucking hawked so much ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, 1,000 fucking cc's of vitamin C to counter. Like it was all fucking bullshit. All of this was fucking bullshit. Okay, so she was associated with these people.
Fine. It shouldn't be crossed.
Where's this DNA coming from?
In the production process, I guess. But
in the production process, I guess you don't even know where. I thought you said you were citing studies on this. You don't know where the foreign DNA is coming from. What is the foreign DNA of what? Of who? Of what? What is it?
It's pretty cut and dry. I think that's why Dr. Latipo has chosen this argument to go by, because there's just like a hard line that you don't cross, and they have crossed that.
Like, I'm so sorry. Hold on. Again, if you're gonna come on here credentialed, you're a doctor. That's a lot of fucking schooling. Okay, you had to do a lot of shit. For the MCATs, you had to go through your whole residency. You had to memorize so much shit about the human body. You should be able to give a credible study and explain a process as simple as this to somebody like you. This is a doctor, not a chiropractor, not a dentist. No offense either, or no offense to the dentist. Fuck chiropractor. This is a doctor. You should know this. You should be able to say this and explain this. If you're going to come on here as a credentialed doctor and cite and flout your credentials, then give us a better explanation, okay?
What happens if you get too much DNA?
Well, you can integrate it.
Yeah.
The concern is, does it integrate into your cell DNA?
No, that's what, do you think any random DNA that goes into your body just randomly goes into your cell's DNA? That's not how any of that works. The whole process by which, first of all, you have to get into the cell, right? Which was getting through the membrane of the cell, which stuff can do. Viruses do it. And then you have to get into the nucleus of the cell, which viruses can also do, but it's a whole, like, that's a whole ass thing. There's like a process by which that happens to get into a cell. That's why viruses are viruses and not just random floating hunks of DNA. Wait, what?
Are we going to make like?
And then even if you manage to do that, because believe it or not, we get viral infections all the time. As this other doctor guy said, an actual doctor, right? If your body identifies like changes to DNA and these cells are produced, your body will kill it. That's what your immune system is for. Like all of this is so fucking stupid.
Monkey people? Could you imagine?
But cancer, that's
Right. You imagine if we made like hybrid people, they turned out to look like Neanderthals. Like, like we injected them with something that twisted their genes back. But just the idea of manipulating your DNA is so terrifying. It's like, what?
In pregnant women, right?
Right. Integrating.
It'd be one thing if it's a 70-year-old.
You understand that like viruses integrate, like arguably there's like huge sections. A lot of DNA is kind of weird or whatever. Yeah, they do. In some ways, DNA doesn't even matter. But like, there's a whole bunch of sections of DNA that are like theorized. Like this is probably some reverse transcript virus from a long time ago. Regardless. I mean, like it's not. Yeah, I'm sorry. This is just like a retarded conversation.
Well, man, but a pregnant woman.
Yeah, you hear that
got
term? Integrate DNA. You don't think good things. That's like immediately. I'm like, what?
Right. And these things are technically gene therapy products. They're not vaccines. So.
Oh, that's fucking argument. Oh my God, gene therapy products.
There's a real problem with using the same term. Why not use a new term? Well, because then you wouldn't be under the umbrella of protection that vaccines currently enjoy, where they can't be, which is so crazy. It's so crazy. It's just hard to believe it's true. It really is.
It is.
And so for a person like you that just like you were saying, see the carnage every day. Tell me what it's been like. Like, what is it like?
It's hard because.
Yeah, where is that? I thought all these people are supposed to be dying from vaccines. I don't see them yet.
As an ENT, I'm used to fixing people quickly. So, I get somebody with a sinus infection, get them an antibiotic, they're good to go. I get somebody with an abscess, I drain the abscess, they're good to go. It's sort of why I chose my specialty, because I like to see the results quickly. I didn't go into primary care for a reason. And so when I see the injured, it's like, it's very slow going.
Well,
We don't have a lot of research. It's trial and error. These people are young, were previously young and healthy, and their lives have just been completely destroyed. I don't have a big support system of other specialists I can send them to. It's hard. I mean, I don't feel sorry for myself, but I'm just saying it's just very different from what I'm used to as a doctor. So I really hope that the government will step up and do something about this.
Yeah, that would be a nice thing to hope to do something about it. But it would be really nice if some real research was done on what are the actual long-term effects.
Oh my
If
God.
everyone's looking at it from a position of we can't get sued for this. This is dangerous. Like someone has to look at it and say, well, these are the definite effects of this vaccine, because it's too much. This is long COVID. It's too much. Oh, he got a neurological condition that was going to happen anyway.
Fuck this cunt. Unreal. What is this lawsuit here for? She appealed. Methodist Hospital, it is Houston Methodist Hospital, and Mark L. Boom, claimed as Houston Methodist for defamation and defamation application. They moved to dismiss Dr. Bowden's claims under the Texas Citizens Participation Act. The trial court granted Houston Methodist's motion to dismiss and signed a final judgment. So they dismissed. They didn't even. That was how weak they thought her claim was. Background: Dr. Bowden is a licensed ENT physician who practices in Houston, Texas. She is board certified in both otolaryngology. Laryngology, otolaryngology. Is that correct? And sleep medicine. She's the founder of Breathe Otolaryngology. Okay. She's the founder of Breathe MD and specializes in sinus, sleep, and allergy disorders, and treats both children and adults. She became a member of the provisional medical staff at Houston Methodist in 2019. When the COVID-19 pandemic began in March 2020, Dr. Bowden's practice shifted from treating patients with sinus, sleep, and allergy issues to treating COVID-19 patients. The Food and Drug Administration, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and the Texas Department of Health, State and Human Services encouraged the use of the COVID-19 vaccines, losers, to prevent the spread of the virus. Dr. Bowden treated her patients with ivermectin-based queen. Where's I need a queen button. There it is. Good job. An off-label prescription. As time progressed, Dr. Bowden became an opponent of vaccine mandates and eventually the vaccines. According to her, Bowden, the vaccines posed significant risks, and she felt the government was being very candid about those risks. She began publicly sharing her opinions about the vaccine mandates and vaccines on Twitter. I've had it. Going forward, I will not accept any patient any patients who have been vaccinated. I will continue to see established patients how sick who have had the vaccine, but all new patients have to be unvaccinated. What the fuck? Given the current climate and the writing on the wall, I'm shifting my practice focus to treating the unvaccinated. Vaccine mandates are wrong. During this time, Dr. Bowden published an updated vaccination policy on BreatheMD's website. In this update, addressed to the BreatheMD community, Dr. Bowden asserted that a urologist employed by Houston Methodist told a patient that Houston Methodist was discussing denying care for unvaccinated people. Contrary to recommendations against by the FDA, CDC, and TDSHS, Dr. Bowden promoted the use of ivermectin on Twitter and republished a tweet claiming that ivermectin is effective for COVID-19. In an attempt to counteract Dr. Bowden's opinions about the COVID-19 vaccine treatments, Houston Methodist issued a statement on its Twitter account. She supported her position with an unsworn declaration, her curriculum vitae, I don't know if I'm saying right, and an unauthenticated document entitled Ivermectin for COVID-19 Real-Time Meta-Analysis of 95 Studies. Houston Methodist moved to strike the declaration due to statutory and evidentiary defects. Houston Methodist also moved to strike the Ivermectin analysis due to evidentiary defect. Trial court signed an order striking Dr. Bowden's declaration in its entirety because it was defective in its order. The trial court noted that she did not file a response. After an oral hearing, the trial court granted Houston Methodist's motion to dismiss. This appeal followed. Okay. Wow. It's a real star guest you got here, buddy.
It just coincidentally happened after he took the COVID shot. Like, there's got to be some way to determine what of these ailments, like specifically, like when you're talking about the abnormal antibody levels, like.
Well, there are patterns. I mean, I definitely see the same sort of things over and over again. So it's not like, you know.
But as you said, it doesn't have a classification.
Right. It doesn't have a code. So we need an ICD-10 code for these.
That seems kind of crazy.
Yeah. Well.
Imagine if that was the case with like herpes. Everybody would be like, hey,
Yeah.
put a damn code in there so we know what this is.
Right. But there, you know, I see very similar constellation of symptoms. I see patients with these abnormal tremors, which, you know, they can't stop shaking even when they're sleeping. They feel internal vibrations, or they'll have
internal vibrations.
Severe pain that you can't explain. You know, you get an MRI. There's no nerve damage that you can tell. I've seen some very strange rashes, and normally, you know, it doesn't matter what kind of rash it is. You throw a few meds at it, and it will disappear. But actually, the only thing that I found helpful is ivermectin for these strange rashes.
It's not even so much that these fucking retards couldn't just have their ivermectin for COVID, but they literally started treating these stupid drugs as like fucking like miracle cures for everything. It's actually so fucking cringe. Holy shit.
And you see POTS where the blood pressure, that's the hardest, I think. And this is we're seeing a lot of this, where the blood pressure just drops suddenly with no stimulation, or the heart races with no provocation. That is very common, very difficult to treat.
That's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
He says every now and then his heart will just jack up to like 180.
Yep.
And he has to sit down. And he just has to hope that this isn't the last time he breathes.
Yeah.
He just sits there. He has a heart monitor. He puts it like one of the wristwatch ones, the Garmin one. He just watches his heart jack up to like 180 beats per minute, just sitting there for no reason, not knowing if you're going to die.
Right.
Another friend of mine who was really young, was a soccer player, super healthy guy, super fit, gets the vaccine, all of a sudden, giant heart racing in the middle of the night, like out of control, like, you know, like you're running a 7-minute mile, just jacked.
Yeah, yeah.
And he wound up in the hospital twice. Nothing they could do. It all went away. It stopped, went back to normal after a while. But now he's got this like terrible fear that he's got a fucking time bomb in his chest.
Yeah.
That out of nowhere, his heart would just ramp up. And you could say like, oh, it's probably a genetic.
He went to the hospital twice. Did he just have a couple like panic attacks? Or what? Like, hello?
thing. He probably had it already. He's like, maybe. But this guy was super fit.
Yeah.
Super fit soccer player.
And that's the athletes.
Oh, and fit people never have diseases or pre-existing conditions or issues like this ever.
That's an athlete. So it used to be 29 per year. Now it's 290 per year. Growth 10 times.
Crazy.
Dropping
That's
dead.
The rarest of rare people to drop dead in the middle of nowhere. The best athletes in the world. The people who are the healthiest in the prime of their life.
Right. And I worry about these kids because, you know, myocarditis, the primary symptom is chest pain. But if you've got a kid who's not even speaking yet, you have no idea if they have myocarditis. And myocarditis can leave a permanent scar on the heart and then lead to a lifelong increased risk of sudden cardiac death.
So this is incredibly uncommon, right? Myocarditis, pericarditis are generally acute conditions. They clear up for a couple of weeks and they're just gone. Also, COVID causes this as well in greater numbers, but I guess we don't care about that.
And we have no idea if these kids have been affected.
Yeah, and how many kids did we see drop dead of heart attacks in like high school football this year?
Right.
Like over the last 4 years, rather. It was like you'd see these articles pop up all the time. You never saw those articles. Or if you did, it was super rare and it's some kid with a heart condition that was never diagnosed, which does happen.
Yeah, and the schools are now making kids get cleared by a doctor before doing sports, which I don't remember that when we were kids.
Wow. Yeah, they just threw us right under the wrestling team. They didn't check shit. They didn't even see if you had a cold.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's better.
Even when I was in high school, they started to check hydration levels for wrestlers at least, but I don't know what else they would check or not.
Probably better screen them. You know, they'll find those undiagnosed conditions that kids can have.
Well, I think it's in response to.
Also, I'm pretty sure you have to have like a physical just to get into at least the schools that I've been to. You have to do like you do the eye check and you go take a basic thing to get to high school, but maybe schools are different for these people. I don't know.
What's happening?
Oh,
I don't
it
know
certainly
that
is.
yeah.
But I mean, that might be the good aspect of it.
Right.
Maybe some people will get diagnosed that didn't have any idea that they were running around with a problem and they can fix it.
But it's hard to diagnose. Like really, the only way you can diagnose myocarditis for sure is to do either a biopsy or a cardiac MRI, which is most kids are not going to be put through that.
Right.
So
Jesus.
it's scary.
And it's what's crazy is this is all true, and yet us talking about it makes us both look like kooks. Like we then will be labeled, for sure, someone will go out and attack us now and label us anti-vax, anti-science, kooks, and this is what's dangerous about this conversation. This is what's dangerous about what they said. And, those people work for the devil.
Well, do you think you'll get censored on YouTube, this interview?
No.
You don't?
No.
Because I was just on Jimmy Dore.
Yeah,
and
you
they
got
had to
censored?
bleep out like a full sentence of mine.
I'm not
on
bleeping
YouTube.
out shit. I'm not bleeping out shit.
You think it'll be okay?
We'll find out. I think it's wrong if it's not okay. If it's not okay, I think YouTube is more reasonable now than they were during the pandemic. And I think they have a very difficult job managing content at scale where you're dealing with, the
Okay. I don't know.